Hello, listeners. It's Gunter here with some exciting news. We're on the lookout for sponsors to join us on our incredible journey with Inspired Change with Gunter. If your organisation cares deeply about meaningful conversations around masculinity, self development, and mental health, we'd love to partner with you. Our podcast has a wonderful, dedicated audience committed to personal growth and positive social change. By sponsoring Inspired Change with Gunter, your brand will connect with listeners who truly value thoughtful discussion and support initiatives that promote real transformation. We're incredibly proud to be ranked number one in Australia and number 5 in the USA on FeedSpot's top men's mental health podcasts. For more information on how to become a sponsor, please reach out to Miranda Spiegner Sapon, our showrunner and executive producer. We'd love to explore how we can work together to inspire change. Now, thank you for your continued support, and let's keep inspiring change together.
You're listening to Inspire Change, a broadcast that strives to educate, motivate, and empower men to challenge traditions of masculinity. To guide us through the intricacies and intersections of emotions, relationships, and male identity is renowned psychologist, author, and speaker Gunter Swoboda. This is Inspire Change.
Before I begin the actual podcast, I would like to respectfully acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which I work. I would also like to pay my respects to their elders past and present. Welcome everybody to another episode of Inspired Change with Gunter. I'm your host. Welcome everybody to another episode of Inspired Change with Gunter. I'm your host. I'm a psychologist, I'm a speaker, writer, author, and the creator of the Making Good Men Great framework. This podcast is all about unpacking the psychology, history, philosophy, and culture behind masculinity, and inviting men and everyone else to come and join me in the journey of personal growth and social transformation. So, what's today's episode? Well, I titled today's episode as Men as Allies, advocating for gender equity. But I want to stretch the idea of allyship. It's not just about being an ally to women. It's also about being an ally to other men. The work that we embark on is relational, and it's absolutely and fundamentally necessary. So let's start with a really simple question. What does it mean actually to be an ally? Now, allyship isn't just about saying the right things or reposting the right content on social media. What it's really about is a sustained commitment through action, through presence, and most of all through integrity. Being an ally means standing in solidarity with others, especially those who are experiencing injustice and marginalisation. Not because it's trendy, but because it's just. And anyone who follows the news about today's world will agree that this is fundamentally important. So I'm talking about being a vocal advocate for gender equity, but also for other forms of equity. And it's not just when women are present, but especially when those people who live and are forced to be in an unequal state, that we're there for them, even when they're not in the room. And for us as men, that includes being an ally to each other, especially when men are struggling, emotionally, mentally, relationally. Being an ally to another man can mean challenging the toxic myths that say real men don't cry or man up and move on. True allyship requires empathy, but more than that, it demands courage. The courage to interrupt the status quo. And this is essential. It means being out of step with the current trends. I grew up in the mid-70s, and part of being outside the current trend was perceiving the Vietnam War as unjust, wanting to preserve our ecology, especially whales, being part of the Greenpeace movement, and looking at an anti-nuclear position, because ultimately that was what was going to bring us to the brink. Now, did I get criticism? Absolutely. But at the same time, I was absolutely convinced, even though I was quite young, that my position was the right one to take, based on many, many levels. I'd started reading philosophy, I was into spirituality, I was into surfing. So to me, nature took a very particular and special place in my life. And I didn't want to see it destroyed. We were watching mining companies, and we still watch mining companies do inconceivably hostile things to the environment just for profit. So this is what I mean by allyship requires and demands courage. We need to challenge the status quo. Since then, we've had a particularly toxic economic, political ideology take hold of us. Neoliberalism. And you hear me talk about this all the time. And to put it bluntly, the neoliberals' position only respects the individual amassing money and assets, profit and dominance and control. This is an unethical and immoral ideology. So not only do we need to be women's allies, we need to be allies for each other, for continued existence, but in a better ethical place. So, where does this all fit in with patriarchy? Well, patriarchy is simply part of the neoliberal package. In fact, I argue that the neoliberalism that we deal with today is simply an extension of patriarchal values, the sort of traditional masculine norms, which doesn't just harm women. I would argue that it deforms us as men. It restricts our emotional range, and therefore it isolates us from meaningful connection, and it frames dominance as a virtue. When we perpetuate those norms, actively or passively, we reinforce a system that thrives on equality. It is unethical and immoral. It is an inequality. I want to stress that. We need to pay attention to this. Now, I know some men hear the word ally and immediately think, doesn't that mean I have to apologise for being a man? And my unequivocal answer is that no, that's, essentially what I'm saying is this. Allyship is not self-erasure. It's self-expression. It's stepping beyond defensiveness and stepping into responsibility. But that responsibility includes challenging the environments we're in. Our workplace, our sports teams, our peer groups. Anywhere where there's sexist jokes that are passed off as humour, where women's voices are dismissed, or where emotionally vulnerable people are in essence punished. And where emotional vulnerability is actually punished in men, something that we see frequently. Now, in those moments, silence equals complicity. So, ask yourself, am I showing up for gender equity, or am I just not rocking the boat? Let's take it from theory to practice. Here's what real allyship can look like. Listen more than you speak. When women speak about their experiences, believe them. Don't try to fix, minimise or defend. Just listen. Intervene respectfully. If someone's making a sexist joke or a comment, you don't have to go nuclear. A calm, hey, that's not cool, can shift the tone. Allyship isn't about being the loudest or the most dominant. It's about being consistent. Share the space. Are you dominating meetings, interrupting others, amplifying voices that often go unheard? Use your privilege to elevate, not overshadow. Now, here's a really important one. Model vulnerability with other men. Go ahead, break the cycle of silent suffering. Say, I'm struggling too. Or, I've been thinking about how I was raised to see women, and I'm unlearning some of that. Be the one to open the door. And finally, educate yourself and others. Allyship isn't about expecting others to do the labour for you. How about you read? Something that's becoming scarce these days, unfortunately. Listen, reflect, and then share what you've learnt, especially with other men. Now, here's the other side of the coin. If we only talk about being allies to women, we risk ignoring the silent epidemic among men, which is loneliness, shame, depression, and suicide. Being an ally means calling out sexism and calling in struggling men. It means checking in with a mate who's gone quiet. It means making space for men to talk about the abuse they've experienced. Yes, even at the hands of other men. It means checking in with a mate who's struggling, either because he's been abandoned in a relationship or he's had to leave. So ultimately, it means creating a culture where boys grow up knowing that they can be nurtured, where being kind isn't soft or girly, and where being strong doesn't mean being silent. Allyship to men and allyship to women are not opposites. They're intertwined. It's about caring, respecting, and working with each other. Because ultimately, the same system that says men must dominate also says they must suppress their feelings. The same system that silences women also shames men for showing vulnerability. When we dismantle one, we free both. And it's a simple trick. So where do we begin? As I've said, we begin by choosing to show up again and again and again and again and again. Not perfectly, there is no such thing, but consistently. Not performatively. It's not a stage play. We need to be sincere in this. Now, it usually starts small. A conversation with your son about respect. An apology when you realise you interrupted someone. A moment of honesty with a friend. A refusal to laugh at that joke. Now these moments ripple out. And as always, I'll say this. Being an ally is a process. We'll get it wrong sometimes. We'll be challenged. But the question is, will we stay in the room? Will we keep learning, unlearning, and doing better? Again, it's a relational activity. It's reflexive. Now, personally, I believe we can do this. So, on the final note, thank you for joining me again on Inspire Change with Gunter. Now, if this episode's resonated with you, share it with someone who's doing the work, or someone who might need a gentle nudge. And remember, allyship isn't a title. It's a practice, it's work, it's behaviour, it's an attitude. And it's not about being the hero, it's about being human together. So until next time, stay compassionate, stay curious, and as always, keep striving to make good men great.
Hello. This week, we would like to take the time to show our appreciation for the Ukraine. We acknowledge that your country is going through a tremendous amount, but your people, they keep listening and inspiring change. The people of the Ukraine have been loyal listeners of Inspire Change since the start. However, within the last 4 seasons, we have watched the Ukraine climb from number 18 all the way to number 8, earning you a congratulations and placing the Ukraine on the top 10 global listeners list. Since the invasion, the struggle for your freedoms is apparent, and the team at Inspire Change with Gunter stand with you and President Zelensky. We strive to set the example of what it means to be human through positive social change and inspiring human connection. Sincere gratitude to everyone in the Ukraine. We appreciate every one of you and are grateful for your likes, shares, follows, and subscribes. But most of all, for you continuing to inspire positive social change. If you want to share your story of social change, please feel free to reach out to the show directly. See the show notes for our contact information.
Love to hear from you. And if you're interested, please check out my work on www.guntersvoboda.com or www.goodmengreat.com.
Thank you for listening to Inspire Change, a broadcast that strives to educate, motivate, and empower men to challenge traditions of masculinity. For more information on the Making Good Men Great movement, or for individual or group coaching sessions with Gunter, visit goodmengreat.com.